Glad you could stay with us on NTV Weekend Edition. Now, in yesterday's Part 1 series of the Lari Massacre, which took place in Kiambu County, we brought you the tales of survivors of the massacre and those born out of the strife amongst the Agikuyu people. In tonight's installment of the special report, Robert Gichira and Ngina Kirori narrate how the massacre still has its imprints amongst the people of Lari. Take a look.
Mau has committed the most vicious atrocity in Kenya's history.
Mau did not kill the people in Lari for nothing. It was a reiteration of what they were done by the collaborators and the British colonial officers.
Andũ magĩkĩhũngwo mahuri thigari mũgatimu iria tũkugaga we warĩ mbara-inĩ ũyũ ndiamuonire ũyũ nĩwe warĩ kwang'ania ũyũ nĩwe warĩ kwang'ania.
Rĩu gũtiakinya hĩndĩ nĩ kwambĩrĩria rĩu gũtahwo andũ acio marutire wĩra ũcio mĩciĩ gũtahwo.
Herds of cattle, sheep, goats, vital assets in the lives of Kikuyus, are impounded by the government and driven away to collecting centers.
No indo gũtiagĩtigirwo kũrĩ nginya ng'ombe tondũ ciaiyĩrirwo thabarĩ cia baba kwanja ciaiyĩrirwo na mbugi kĩbugi gĩgekĩrwo ng'ombe na ndũ gĩkaihũra rĩu ithuĩ twakĩanja mathĩna hau.
They took a lot of livestock from the people, not only the people of Lari, all over the country where the British colonial battalion, that battalion was called the British Yorkshire Fusiliers.
Aroused by the Mau threat to all existing law and order, government police and loyal Kikuyu begin to strike back with swift and grim justice.
A swift retaliatory attack by the white colonialists on the Mau would further spread death amongst the Agikuyu community as they sought to teach them a lesson for murdering those loyal to them.
Arĩa maiguire guoya-rĩ na kwarĩ rũmwe-rĩ macokire magĩtuĩka berenda acio nĩo moimbũrire arĩa angĩ mũno atĩ mwana ũyũ nĩanyuĩte ũyũ nĩanyuĩte ũyũ nĩanyuĩte.
The attack on the Mau would last for 2 weeks, sparing no one, not women or children. For many, this was seen as the true massacre.
Wĩra nĩ warutirwo nginya ndigekumbũra tũgateng'ũka tũgekĩrwo mĩcuba atumia magekĩrwo mĩcuba.
Women were inserted bottles of hot water into their private parts by the British soldiers and the collaborators. There is nothing evil that was not done to our people at Lari.
You have let loose upon this land a flood of misery and unhappiness.
Muno kwa kwĩrĩa andũ aingĩ mũno tondũ kĩhota gũtara ithabu kũragwo ta rĩu ũngĩgĩtwara rĩu haha harĩ mũciĩ hau harĩ mũciĩ ũngĩ haha nao harĩ mũciĩ ũngĩ na igua rĩu na wĩna andũ nĩ moragwo thĩ kuma hĩndĩ ĩyo-rĩ gũkũ gũtiagaga thigari irorũra gũkũ na ngari cia gũkora igakũnyita.
Rĩu o niĩ na arĩa angĩ matagĩthiaga thukuru-rĩ nĩ ithuĩ twatwaragĩra baba irio mũtitũ kĩu wĩ hau point maikaraga mahiga mungu iria uga ciĩtagwo tarĩ ngurunga. Rĩu-rĩ mbũri twĩhũrĩrĩria ngurunga-inĩ na irio rĩu tũikie tukĩrũrange hau na mbũri citũ tũrũrange twĩ ciana nyingĩ twagĩcoka rĩu hĩndĩ ya kumĩra.
Hoya ima thaima nĩa Mũngai ũrĩa wa tene nĩimũ nĩahũrirwo yumĩte gĩthũngũri ya njomo amenye twakinyire ndatuĩkire coordinator wa andũ arĩa makoragwo marĩa mbara a mũtitũ. Nĩ ndamonagia ũrĩa megũthiĩ, nĩ ndamaheaga kwa gũkoma magĩthiĩ Ngong'u. Rĩu nĩ ũndũ ũcio nĩ njiguaga ruo, ũhoro ũcio ũgĩthiĩ ũrĩre rĩera-inĩ wakaga ciana kũmenya atĩ kwĩ hĩndĩ bũrũri ũyũ warĩ mũtahe na wakomborirwo na andũ metagwo na marĩtwa mao magakĩgwetwo.
As thousands of natives are rounded up and brought before survivors of the massacre and questioned, the hunt for more terrorists goes on. Meanwhile, investigations are hampered by streams of refugee Kikuyus.
Githunguri would later become another focal point in the history of the massacre, as courthouses began to be constructed by Indian workmen a few days later.
Ironically, the site chosen for the trial is the location of Jomo Kenyatta's Teachers College. This had been part of his program to develop an African school system independent of religious and government-sponsored institutions.
Githunguri was the center of the Kikuyu resistance, both religiously and also with most of the Mau Mau were from that area, from Githunguri.
The seer, Mogo Kifiro, had prophesied that this is where the power, where the peace will originate, and the altar will be built here. That is the shrine. So the Europeans were always ahead of us. They knew that this was a sacred place, and therefore they wanted to spoil it by spilling bloods of people here.
But despite many obstacles and delays, within 3 weeks, over 300 suspects are held for trials by courts convened under special orders of the government.
Chief McNay, no ari munene guku. Agĩkĩoywo na radio bagĩtwarwo kũ na akĩheo nyũmba kũ. Rĩu kũu nĩkuo achagũragĩra andũ.
Kikuyu chieftains appointed by the court act as assessors to help the presiding magistrate determine the guilt or innocence of the accused. In all, 13 trials are held in which 75 men are convicted and sentenced to be hanged for their crimes.
And they set an execution gallows in Githunguri.
Teams of laborers are brought in to build special gallows should the death sentences be upheld for those convicted of taking part in the Lari Massacre.
Ha niho hakĩtwo nyũmba na nĩ yatharirio nĩ mũkoroni tondũ mũndũ ũgwĩtwo mũbea ikaraga oro hau mũromo arĩ o hau mũndũ atonya akandĩkĩrwo kĩrĩa agacaina na akahoerwo mũbea akoinanga karamu agate agethamba moko ndakanakinyĩrwo nĩ mehia mau.
In speeches from the prisoner's dock, many said they would like to take the Kikuyu Thengi oath to prove their innocence. Each one made a long address to the judge denying his guilt and accusing the prosecution witnesses of prejudice against him.
Okorwo ti mũkuũ karingwo na nyondo akeherio. Okorwo nĩ ahonoka macini hanini ndekũhutio egũcokio rĩngĩ mũthenya ũngĩ. He mũndũ wageririo maita matatũ akĩrema na arakuire kĩa Ngai. Arĩa maitĩirwo haha listi ĩrĩa ndĩ nayo nĩ andũ 58 matwaragwo Red Nova rũcinĩ thaa 2:30 na matwaragwo matarĩ ahumbĩre na kĩndũ rori open maikĩtio ũguo tango nĩgetha andũ metigĩre metĩkĩre ũrĩa mũthũngũ arenda kana matigane na mbara mone nĩ megũthira na majority andũ arĩa maitirwo haha marutĩtwo rari.
I was young, but I was told you will not see so-and-so anymore. He was hanged yesterday. We really got frightened very, very much.
But those are few people who were taken to Githunguri gallows. Many of others were killed in the villages.
Soon, battalions of British regulars are flown in from England, Germany, and the Suez Canal Zone, bringing the total forces engaged in Kenya to over 7,000 white troops and 4,000 of the King's African riflemen, in addition to over 20,000 local reserve soldiers and police. There are more troops actively engaged in fighting Mau Mau than the total number of white settlers in the colony. Numbers of Mau Maus accounted for by the planes are painted on the fuselage as pilots prepare for another flight to flush out secret hideouts that cannot be seen from the ground. And out of this, many can see an end to the reign of Mau Mau violence and terror.
We used what we called at that time a brain gun, where they shoot a group of people all together. About 20, 30 people are fallen. They were then collected, put in a lorry, and they were dumped in trenches dug by tractors.
The population of the Agikuyu was 4 million before the emergency war, before 1950. But by the end of the struggle, in 1961, the population of the Agikuyu was 2 million. So the 2 million remains unaccounted for. So many young men were killed, massacred by the Wazungus, translocated, some died in detention and were buried there.
Ladies were left without their men around, and they stayed like that. We have a lot of single parents even now, because the families went through a period where they didn't have a father figure in the family. So these girls, some of them just took life that they can do it without a man. And it has affected our community quite a lot.
Onasiugaga atĩrĩ, mwandĩkĩ mwarũagĩra. Ũngĩkĩũrio ũguo nĩ mwana rĩ, ũkũmwĩra atĩa? Acio nĩ irimũ reke ngwĩre. Mbara ndĩrĩ mwago.
Mbara ndĩrĩ mwago ona mwamĩona. Nĩ atũninĩire marigithathi. Aciarirwo mĩai-inĩ ciĩna ng'ono. Twathiĩ tũkuhĩria no tũkainũka. Twatwarĩirwo kware-inĩ cia mahiga. Na tũtiamenyaga kũrĩa twatwarĩirwo. Ngĩigua chomo ndarĩ na ndiamenyaga. Ngĩringwo kũgũrũ ngĩtuĩka kĩonje.
The British at home said Kenya will have their own country. That is where intrigues and betrayal came about.
Mzungu destroyed these places.
Mwarega kuoya kĩrĩa twĩnakĩo haha mũgũtũũra nduma-inĩ.
And that is just the end of part 3 of Scars of Lari. We'll be taking a short break. When we come back, part 4 will be coming right up your way. Stay with us.